Arsenal 2, United 3. United go into the top four, the first visiting team to win at the Emirates this season. Came from behind to do it, levelled, moved ahead, shrugged off a late setback, and then won it in spectacular fashion late on. Deserved 3 points. That's 6 points from six now against the top two in successive weeks. And as much as we would like to keep it calm and balanced and reasonable, Nick, it's going to be a struggle, isn't it? That was another superb performance today, wasn't it?
It's Carrick, can't say my delight. Sorry about that. It really is, it is a performance to look at and to behold because for all the excitement last week in the derby, and you can put a lot of that down to adrenaline, the Manchester derby, being ready for, your noisy neighbours or, the team that has dominated in recent decade. And you kind of look at today as, right, this is a real test now. Once we've got that out of the way, it's a superb performance. Can we do it? Can we look at the approach, tweak little things here and there, and come away with, I think we said, at least a draw. And wow, we just went and did it.
Well, if we go to the usual format that we take this with, so we'll start with the formation, the approach, and all the tactical angle on everything because it was an unchanged 11. But from your perspective, was it? I mean, there were changes to the approach, weren't there, versus City?
Yeah, I mean, listen, for the money, it was going to be unchanged. There's probably two positions that came up in Carrick and the coaching staff's mind. You might want to look at something, potentially Dorgu coming out of the team, or you could argue Mazraoui in for Dallo. But of course, Dallo has done well in the derby. There's been a recent uptake in his form, and his concentration in the derby was fantastic, to be honest. So you're thinking, the back line will stay the same. And as I say, the only one consideration you might have thought about would be Acuna for a Dorgu, and that's simply because you're going to have to play slightly more narrow against an Arsenal who dominate the middle. They've got the obviously 4-3-3 approach by them, 4-5-1 at times, and they do like to dominate the ball in the middle of the park. So you could argue it depends which way Carrick was looking at it. Is it a case of right, well, you've got Timber and Saka down that side, so Shaw and Dorgu will, be the nominal double act as we saw against Semenyo and then later Cherki. So it was probably a toss of the coin, but why not keep the form pairing in? And although Dorgu had a bit of a miserable first 30 minutes, shall we say. I thought he came out of his shell, clearly had a bollocking at half time, and what a turnaround he had in the second half. So yeah, 4-2-3-1, but out of possession, as I say, slightly more narrow this time. A bit of a 4-1-3-2, if you like. So Casemiro dropping in, and then really interesting roles for Kobe and Ahmad, and then Bruno was part of the two within Bumo. So a bit of like a 4-4-2 out of possession, but often a 4-1-3-2. So really interesting tweaks from Carrick today.
And how did that match up against Arsenal's approach for you?
Well, I think it's a case of, do we go positive and jump high? Do we not let Odegaard and Rice get on the ball deep? And I think that's what we saw today. I mean, honestly, I thought the way between Bruno Casemiro and Mainu, they saw off the early threat, the deep threat, which is what Arsenal are all about. It's their build. Saliba, Gabriel, great, first time passes into the likes of Zubamendi. Odegaard would come wide, and that's how they build. Then if Rice is giving it, it's often beyond the halfway line, and he's driving forward with the ball. And today, we just nullified that threat. Rice was often seen coming into the left back position to try and get on the ball, and that was such a positive sign. And then Bruno or Kobe would come over and help Ahmad and nullify that threat. There was, in fact, one passage of play about 75 minutes typified that, where Rice has got the ball, he thinks he's going to drive down that side. Yes, he did take Bruno from in the first press, and he's just ran into Kobe, and I just thought that typified that the entire approach. This wasn't a smash and grab. This wasn't a quick 1-0 and sit back deep. It was fantastic from the outset from Michael Carrick, and we were always not an excessively high line, but a very positive back line, a midfield that doesn't just drop in into a 5-4-1 low block, which was at times, don't get me wrong, when we were under the cosh a bit in the second half. That did occur, but for the most part, it was solid back four, Kobe or Casemiro sitting in front of the centre backs, and then as I say, that three, either Dorgu tucking in to help Kobe, and then Bruno, or it'd be Ahmad and then Bruno high with then Mbeumo. And I thought, making sure there's clear delineation between each line, and making sure you've not just got three flat lines as Arsenal attacking was a real feather in the cap today for Carrick. And um, you know, fantastic, super work. When you look at the some of the feedback post City game, oh yeah, you're playing a weakened Manchester City on a bad run, who are in need of the Mark Gahey coming in the back line. But actually, if you watch that game carefully, you saw there was clear differentiation between what we'd seen in the previous 10 games under Amarim and what Carrick and his coaching staff were trying to achieve. So, we've got to enjoy this moment. Otherwise, what's the point in enjoying football?
100%. So what are the differences apart from your kind of your structural changes? What are we seeing that's different? Because to me, just to put my sort of thoughts over, they look a lot calmer in possession. They look a lot more confident. They look a lot more expressive. They look unencumbered. They look freer to me. Now, how do you go about that as a coach in such a short space of time beyond just, I mean, it might be too reductive to say round pegs in round holes. It can't just be that kind of, he's giving them some kind of psychological boost as well.
Yeah, yeah. I mean, again, we moved it in the last review, didn't we? About from the training pitch, up to it'll be the one-to-one analysis room. It'll be conversations, arms around the shoulder. We've got to give lots of credit to Carrick about that. But going back to the round pegs in round holes aspect, I think it is a big part of it. I mean, you and I sat there on the debut podcast for this channel back in late summer, and we said, right, so he's put his marker down there with a Bruno and Casemiro central midfield double pivot. We said he's put his marker down there with Ahmad, our most attacking threat in the previous season, or certainly joint attacking threat. He's going to play right wing back. We're then looking at the back line and we're saying, right, well, actually, no one's really standing out. That's why we didn't know whether it'd be Maguire or De Ligt to be the starting centre back. We knew that Yoro probably would start because he's had a really good debut season, but we knew that the age thing might come into play and that the lack of Premier League experience might come into play. So then you're starting with that. And then when De Ligt gets injured after a really positive start, you have to say, for the Dutchman, it then became really messy in terms of, selections in that back line. And Heaven would have a superb game. As we know, he's great on the ball. He's abrasive. He's strong in the tackle. He's got an eye for a long ball, etc. But he was never going to be that, play him 10 games in a row. That's gonna turn the season around. So I do think when you look at it, what Carrick has done has gone, hang about, this is not what I've been seeing. I've been seeing a squad ready for 4-2-3-1 or 4-3-3. I've seen players out of position. I need Bruno closer to goal. I need Mbeumo to be the quicker striker that can work well in transitions rather than coming back often as the right 10 with back to goal, being boxed in by the opposition, just going literally, guys, we're just going to box Mbeumo in today. So don't worry about him. Don't worry about the Cameroonian. He's going to have no impact today. And although he did start the season well in Mbeumo, there was times where he was just looking a little lost, trying to demand the ball in the wrong areas, and then for no fault of his own, by the way, and then trying to get into those positions once the ball had gone back, the up, back and through kind of thing. But by then the other team would get back and they'd, create that block, and Mbeumo was being nullified. So I do praise Carrick for selections as well as obviously his clear tactical understanding, the knowledge of the club that we've talked about for a while now before he got the job, and just understanding what he has at his disposal. So yeah, long-winded answer to that one, but I think it's really important because I knew that we had the squad. Now, listen, we might not get fourth place, that's fine, but I knew we had the squad. I knew we could perform X, to the power of X better than what we were seeing in the last, you know, 15 games or so under Amorim.
We'll get to the unbelievable Cunha goal. Starting with Arsenal's opener. I mean, to me, I mean, we can break it down. To me, it kind of woke us up because I thought we were, we had a steady opening to the game, but it was Arsenal that were kind of dictating the tempo a little bit more. We were a bit more passive in it, and I felt like we needed that to sober us up a little bit because almost immediately, we started creating chances. But if we can start with the Martinez own goal, what was your take on how that came about?
Like you say, I think first 15, 20, they did have the better of it. Although it was largely, possession based, it was Arteta-esque. It was, that kind of arc that they provide once they're over the halfway line. The ball is being circulated. There's not too much penetration. I mean, in fairness, in the first 12 minutes, they've clearly highlighted Dorgu and Shaw as a weakness. Um, Ball's gone out to Saka in the first instance, and then Timber's made that inside run that he does, that interior run. He's gone straight past Dorgu. The ball's gone in, and they nearly get the goal from the resulting cross. And then, as I say, about 11, 12 minutes, it's gone a bit different this time. It's actually ended up as Saka further on, and Saka's gone at Dorgu and Shaw and got past the Dane inside the area. Dorgu just wasn't ready, wasn't setting his body position correctly, wasn't side on, goes past him, nearly gives away the penalty, and then the ball comes across. Again, luckily nothing came of it. So I'll give Arsenal that. Aside from those two moments, and hence why I thought Dorgu started really poorly and then continued just to look a little bit lost in that first half, if I'm being truthful. Um, Aside from those two moments, they didn't have much. And then it's just a little bit of lax play from Mbeumo for the opening goal in the first press on the right hand side. And Sapie comes forward, to be fair, just knows he's past Mbeumo when he receives the ball and he knows he's got the run on him. And then by that point, it's too late for Ahmad to retreat or Dallo to get over. Ball comes across. It's a bit of a, there's the back post ball, which I guess Gyökeres would have appreciated if he was on the pitch at that point. And then sadly, we come back to the Dane again, who's had a wonderful game against City, but started this game really slowly, and it is a really poor header. It's just too basic. There's two or three things he can do in that position, but that's the one thing you can't do. He has to get more of a glancing header of it, so goes out for a throw in effectively. Or he can get communication from the keeper, etc. But Saka just reads it well, drops off, knowing that Dorgu's going to make such a header. Not necessarily in that fashion, of course, but he knows that he can get the second ball. And then I think a couple of things happen. I mean, obviously, this is an on the whistle piece. There's been no review of these things. But I think from memory, what happens there is Casemiro's come over to Saka to help Dorgu. And actually, Bruno and Kobe then are out of position. So Kobe's like, oh my God, I need to get in. And Bruno should have kept on retreating. A bit like a little bit like the Fulham goal, the Smith Rowe goal. Not quite as drastic as that. But Bruno then needs to see it because Casemiro's come over to help Dorgu. Bruno needs to carry on his run back inside the penalty area, and Mainu needs to come across as well. Then the ball's played inside, and Shaw needs to then cross. So it's three very small positional errors, if you like, that lead to the cross, and then Trossard is bullying Martinez, which shouldn't happen. And actually, what happens with Martinez, in my view, is that he just goes either with the wrong foot, because if he's got timber like this, he can put his right foot out. I mean, he's not. I've got a big thing about using the right foot in the right situation. Maybe that's some of the children's coaching that I do, but but it applies to Premier League, right? So Licha can maybe use his right foot in that scenario. Instead, he's used the back of his left foot. He's tried to side foot it away, and maybe he can use the inside of his foot in that scenario, and then we don't concede. So yeah, there's 4 or 5 elements, as with any goal, starting with the Mbeumo, bit lackadaisical in the first instance, and then the Dorgu header, which ultimately leads to that opener.
And if we're going to focus on defensive errors, then thankfully they evened themselves up quite quickly. There was no shortage of blame to throw around the Arsenal defence and midfield, the way that the equaliser came about. I mean, to be fair to you in advance, you called it Saliba prone to not showmanship on the ball, but just a little bit too much. And then the interchange sort of between him and Zubimendi, you know, we're not complaining. We'll take it, won't we?
Yeah, I mean, listen, Saliba's one of my favourite defenders. I think he's absolutely outstanding on his day. But Arsenal fans have been saying it for a while since the Palace game. I think that was back end of last season. There was the Madrid game. He's taking too many chances at the back, and he's trying to overplay it. I mean, that's on Arteta again. It is a coaching principle, of course. But Saliba is doing what Gabriel did of old at the moment. There's no doubt about it. He did one just 2, 3 games ago again. I can't remember the specific details, but he's turned, he's tried to play it to the right back, and they've got in and they've crossed it and scored. And I said that that's something that's something we need to keep an eye on, and that overconfidence at the back that Arsenal have. And he just needs to bypass Zubimendi with that pass. It needs to go out to, I think it was Saka at the time. And if he is going to give it to Zubimendi, he needs to be a bit earlier. And instead, it's too straight. Never play it too straight, too powerful. And Zubimendi, makes that error. Yeah, a wonderful central midfielder like Zubimendi shouldn't be making that error either. It's clear to say, but it is. It's something that Saliba's prone to, and if he wants to be, talked about in the Rios and the Vidics of the world, he's going to have to cut that, like in the same way that Gabriel has cut it out for the main as well. And yeah, so great goal. Interesting on that one is our response to the goal, isn't it, Steve? It's the idea that we're not just going to sit back and then worry like we've done this season when we go under the cosh, and even when we've gone ahead in games, we've often sat back. We've actually kept our shape, and Boomer and Bruno were high. If you remember the goal, Ahmad was supporting them. Kobe was in attendance. That to me was the important thing. That intention, that idea that Carrick has given us now, that we keep the lines, and we keep them, specific and delineated well, and therefore Mbumo was in the right position to take that to the goalkeeper, and to do in the way that he did it. It's Raya, one of the best keepers in Europe, in my view, was absolutely fantastic. There was no doubt he was going to miss. Yes, Bruno can complain to the second, and listen, in real terms, in percentage terms, he has to make the pass to Bruno for the open net, right? But Mbumo's in such a zone at the moment that you just knew he was going to put that in, and kudos to him. He did so.
Just to to hark back to your point about Zubimendi, obviously wonderful player. He's pretty much seamlessly adapted to the Premier League this season. He's given Arsenal a new dimension. But alongside him in midfield, you got Odegaard, you got Rice. That's a top quality midfield, and all three of them were just knocked off their stride today, weren't they? By the approach United took in midfield. I thought Mainu, Casemiro, and with Bruno dropping in. I mean, take it away. Tell us the sort of the masterclass they executed in there.
I think, yeah, as we touched on from the outset, I think it's all about that, the principle of narrow width as well. So, ensuring that we kept that often a box at times when we were in first phase retreat. And so you saw Bruno just behind Mbumo, but it was a two. And then you've got a flat forward. Casemiro was obviously joining Kobe, but really the fact that Ahmad was inside, ensuring that Gabriel couldn't get out, and never mind in Sapie on the left side, and the same Dorgu. His position was precise. It wasn't just to stop the Timber breakaway. It was just inside in case Saliba was to come out. It was watching Odegaard and Zubimendi dropping in. Rice, as I said, kept on dropping into the left back position of their team, and that's because Ahmad's position was super, and that's because Kobe again would choose to go and support Ahmad in that. And then if they did get past that, we had very aggressive fullbacks and centre backs willing to jump, and that's the difference. That the line wasn't so deep, so you have Dallo. I have to give credit to Dallo. I looked at his stats today. One that stood out was 100% pass completion. It's only 18, 19 passes, but that showed his focus today. It showed him his idea that he would remain in what we call a low resting defence, so a very tight and secure resting defence. So when we're attacking, we knew it wouldn't be the typical Carrick master plan of one of the fullbacks going high. It was a, more or less a flat back four. And that, again, that allowed the midfielders to go and to press and to have confidence that in their box press, which I've just called it this second, of course, nothing uh, out of the ordinary there. But in the box press that we use behind Fernandez and Mbumo, you've got the flat back four. So you've kind of, it's like this. It's a four, a two, and a two, and a two in a way. And then obviously splitting according to which way the ball is transition from Arsenal. So I thought that was fantastic, and it was no surprise to me that Odegaard and Rice, one of which would have to be substituted, and obviously it's Odegaard at the moment, and because Rice will provide you that moment, that set piece, that driving forward with the ball, and Odegaard subbed was a real hat tip to the Carrick press today.
You mentioned Patrick Dorgu quite rightly. It was a slow start to the game. He did grow into it, particularly after half time. I mean, what an unbelievable finish that was. And as well, just kind of it continues a little subplot to his United career, certainly of late. Goals in successive weeks in huge games. He's scored now against Newcastle, City, Arsenal, assists against Chelsea, Villa, and Burnley. So no disrespect to Burnley, 5 out of 6, big games. It's stepping up and making a difference. He's really something's coming out of him, isn't it?
Yeah, good stat in there, Steve. This is the player that we that we thought we saw, and when we look at the recruitment aspect with Lecce, was it? And when we saw the inevitable YouTube clips and that driving forward. Now, listen, Carrick answered that correctly this week. He said, "I'm still not sure, is he a left back or is he a left winger?" And I think that's essentially why he was brought in as a left wing back under Amarim. But he's certainly better at the moment, shall we say, going forward and providing that aspect. I've still got worries with him one on one. I've yet to see him beat a man and cross the ball. I've just not seen it. I've seen him get the ball with a right back coming to him. He's created a little bit of separation and crossed the ball in, but I've still not seen him use that injection of pace that we know he might have, and get past his man and cross. So there's definitely a small worry on that aspect, but sometimes you don't need that. I'm trying to think of United players of old. I don't want to compare them literally, but the Beckhams of the world never needed to go past the player with pace. And so Dorgo offers something different. He's got that driving capability with the ball, but it's not necessarily in that kind of one-to-one dynamic that you'd expect, the Giggsy style one-to-one or the Cunha style, approach to the dribble. But he has got that battle in him, that intensity. And the goal proved it. He clearly had a word, in his ear at halftime. There's no doubt about it because he was getting in the way of balls. Bruno was mad with him on about 30 minutes where had he just held his run slightly more, Dorgu would have been in when Bruno played the ball. But he's come out in that start of that second half, ready to go, ready to put it right. And what incredible goal! I think it's the most I've jumped up and down to a goal in many a year. Great one too. I'm going to harp on about positioning again. I'm going to say, look at where Bruno Fernandes was stood for that 1-2. It was just he knew that Saliba had been following him out all game, or certainly first half an hour of the game, and interestingly dropping deep left and right in order to avert that towards the first end of the first half. But you look at that goal, he is again next to Mbumo and then dropping slightly deeper, bringing Saliba out behind Odegaard and Rice and Zubimendi. And that to me is the making of that goal. So Dorgu gets the ball, passes into Bruno, who's in between the lines, literally, gets the 1-2. And again, what a drive forward by him. And as it's bouncing, Dorgu does so well to move his hand due to the stupidity or the likely stupidity of VAR. I mean, if that was ruled out, what world are we in? But it was brilliant that he moved his hand. It's hit his hip. It's bounced perfectly. And then you're thinking, yeah, just strike it, go for it. And he's hit the ball, as Neville said, on the up, and but really done well, body over it. And it's, what a finish. Barring in, it was just magical finish. And that he is a confidence player, Dorgu, and it's no surprise to me that he then got better and better as the half and the game went on.
And having taken the lead, maybe it's because we're being conditioned to this, but you sort of expect a quick backlash from Arsenal, and they've got a lot of time left. Best part of 40 minutes to try and turn it around. League leaders, you expect backs to the wall type job. We didn't really face a shot. I'm not sure we faced a shot on target until 83 minutes, just before the goal. So Larmans makes a great near post save from Saka, gives away the corner from which they bundle in the equaliser. Marino, horrendous goal. But in between, then we just kept them at arm's length, didn't we? And just felt in charge for the most part. It felt that we were as likely to get a third as they were to get an equaliser during that period, I would say.
Definitely. Again, that's the marker of the performance, isn't it? And the marker that Carrick and his coaching staff have had. It's about just keeping your confidence at both, off the ball and on the ball. And I thought that was, really, really pertinent today. Like you said, we were more likely to score. Yes, they had some possession. Um, you've just hinted to the fact that, the last shot on target prior to the goal was about 18 minutes into the game. And that showed you that the work that specifically Casemiro, Kobe, Dogu and Ahmad were doing with that narrow kind of box, often a diamond when Bruno dropped in as well. And it was a real credit to them, a real credit to, the persistence and keeping the shape, keeping their distances, keeping Arsenal at bay. So they had to go round. And when it was played out to Saka, who's, a super talent, as we know, it was a case of just being patient, making sure Shaw went out first or bringing Dorgu in and going 2-on-1. It was just the archetypal perfect off the ball shape. And, kudos to them. And like you say, what we thought at that point was we'll just keep Mbumo and Ahmad or Bruno high. They were interchanging well, but Mbumo certainly. And when we get that ball, we're going to look for that quick transition. And often when we had the ball and we were building from deep, Casemiro and Kobe staying near to each other, we've been screaming out for all season, is ensuring that the third man run would happen. So that doesn't have to be in Mbumo. It could have been, it could have been a Dorgu or a Shaw at times. Dallo, to be fair, stayed very deep, but you're waiting for that third man run. Just go and push Gabriel and Saliba as high and as energetically as you can, and that was the plan. And like you say, it nearly paid off. And yeah, their goal there at corner is about the only thing Le Mans had done wrong all evening. I thought all afternoon. I thought the Belgian had, the game of his life. He really came of age today, to be honest with you.
It was, yeah, just to go on onto Senna, he was proactive, he was dominant, wasn't he, in terms of coming out for corners, commanding his box, not being rooted to his line, just alleviating the pressure as you would as you want your goalkeeper to. And again, talking about being conditioned as a fan base, maybe we've been conditioned in recent years to not expect that. We're still surprised to see him sprinting off his line and beating Gyökeres in a 50-50 to sort of totally alleviate the risk. It's great.
The words to describe his performance are not coming because they're so. I thought he was fantastic. He's exactly what we wanted. He's exactly what we've been screaming out for. And then on this channel, we have discussed some of his, challenges, things to polish up on. He can be a little bit deep on his line. He can overly predict things, certainly from corners, although Arsenal's corners are just off the scale. So I don't think we can analyse that corner too much. But, free kicks, we've talked about position and wall management. But and his kicking was slightly off today, and then it grew as the game went on. But when he's confident, it's left foot, right foot, it's playing out. At times he's finding Kobe directly through the lines, and then out he went. He would often find Martinez, knowing he would be confident on the ball. So I thought that grew as the game went on. But like you said, he gave us that confidence. He was coming to claim things. It was that tip over in the first half from there was a Zubimendi header. I thought that was incredible. So, he got his hands ready. He went, but then he realised he wasn't getting it, and then he was in prime position to tip that over. The one-on-one with Gyökeres, as you said, that's brilliant. Even though the flag later went up, the tip round the post from the quick turn and shot by Saka. What a spot that was! That I'm going to predict this. I'm going to know Saka's going to turn, spin, and shoot here. And bang, he was down, and it was incredible. Even though it might have been hitting the post, it was vital that he touched that round. and yeah, just claiming things, throughout the night. Apart from the goal, I thought he was superb. He really was.
I think most United fans would have snapped your hand off for 2-2 or a point of any variety before the game. But to come away with all three in the manner that they did, there's a couple of points to make on the goal. But let's speak about the aesthetic of it and its construction. Let's go into Kobbie Mainoo's role in it, and then the finish from Mateus Cunha, because it's something we won't tire of replaying that goal, will we?
No, we certainly won't. It's something we've wanted from the Brazilian, all season. Again, we can remember the first game against Arsenal at Old Trafford. There was a very similar shot. This is what he likes to do. This is what danger he provides when he's central. Something again we've talked about to get him back up to speed. Uh, what a substitution by Carrick, and Bumo's given absolutely everything out there. And Cunha, we know, is the false nine that will come, work the channels, keep hold of the ball, draw in the fouls, which he did superbly again, in much the same way he did at Anfield and against City last week. But yeah, what a goal! The old cliches used Gabriel as the wall there, knowing that Raya will be unsighted. And Cobbie's role that you've rightly picked out, I think it summarised his role tonight. The young Englishman, he's not had a scintillating game. He's not set the world on fire in possession, in some of the way he did last week against City. But his off the ball work was incredible. His positioning was incredible. He wasn't scared to go from the medium block to the high press at times, and trusting that Casemiro would be behind him. And he was up there. He's held off Rice in the first instance. It's gone out to Bruno. It's come back to Kobbie in the way again. He's used his body, and I think there's a little Megs on Rice as he plays it through again, through the legs, to Bruno and Cunha, who then obviously plays Cunha in. I'll have to watch that again, but from memory, I think it's a Megs on Rice, and it's really well done by Kobbie. And then, like you say, Cunha just does the rest, and you're just imploring him to shoot there. Maybe at other times in a game, or so you're thinking no, but because confidence was high, because we'd been matching Arsenal every step of the way today, you're just saying yeah, just go for it, and that's his favourite finish, that curler bottom right using in Gabriel as the wall, that unsighting piece of thing, a bit piece of skill. So yeah, wonderful.
The other point I want to make, I want to hone in on the attitude angle, because Cunha, he arrived, I think it's fair to say, with a little bit of a reputation. Obviously, it kind of manifested on the field last season with a couple of red cards, which, equate to red flags. But one or two, the naysayers were saying, if things aren't going well for United, then he's not someone you want in the trenches with you. He will be potentially problematic. So here we are, January, the new manager's come in. He's not started either of his first two games, but he's come off the bench. He's got an assist against City, should have been two, potentially. And then he's come off the bench at Arsenal and scored a world-class winner. And he looks completely invested. He's just condensed he's condensed the 90-minute performance into 20 minutes both times, hasn't he? He's impacted the game in such a positive and progressive way. He's done everything. And it just speaks to a better air around the place, doesn't it?
Yeah, I mean, in short, yeah. I mean, like you say, collectively, the psychology, the camaraderie, that, like you say, to be benched must have been disappointed. But we spoke at length about that and his patchy form leading up to the City game, and Carrick had that toss of the coin. Does he upset Cunha? But the byproduct of that being a better system, a better better personnel, round pegs, round holes, or does he start him and just go with how can I say it? What might have been maybe in an Ole Solskjaer reign, keeping the bigger players happy. And this is what I liked about Carrick's first game. It's Dorgu over Cunha was everyone's oh my God up in arms, but we were just like that's what we want to see. This is exactly what we want to see. We won't say it too much, but things like Ugarte doesn't need minutes at the moment when he's giving the ball away left, right, and centre. Yoru and Heaven don't need to start these types of games when Maguire and Martinez are trusted, experienced internationals who can see us through this mini period. And can we use Cunha from the bench in a central role, drifting and drawing those fouls, ensuring we get up the pitch, and ensuring he's got that moment in him. And you just put it superbly well, like, in those, whatever it was, 15 to 30 minutes across the both games, he's encapsulated what he might have done in 180 minutes had he started the game. And I think that's kudos again to Carrick. Who would have, we've been crying out for Acuna Central, and Sesko might have been disappointed not to get the nod at that point, but it was absolutely the right decision. Bringing the centre backs out and allowing the third man runs as well. And that hopefully set the Brazilian up now. And who knows? He probably starts either next game or certainly, we've got the Fulhams, the West Hams coming up, and he's certainly put himself in contention, hasn't he?
Speaking of putting yourself in contention, obviously there's a long-term process, we're told, going on behind the scenes where the club are looking to identify the permanent manager for the summer. While that is going on, Carrick has very quietly made some changes which have won two huge fixtures, giving us a massive boost in the table, which, we were looking going into these games, we were looking, as you do, you think, oh, well, we'll probably get no points from those two. Meantime, everyone else will kick on. And then you could be going into the Fulham game 12th, 13th, that region. And, I know I wasn't alone in having those fears. Instead, he's done an unbelievable job. And I suppose the elephant in the room probably is that we've been here before with Ollie. And ultimately, you
Mhm.
could say we got burned by that because, hindsight being 2020, people say it was never the right fit. They should have held firm for a little longer before making that appointment, making that big decision. All Michael can do is keep doing what he's doing and keep winning the games. But if he keeps racking up those wins, then he's going to properly put himself in contention, isn't he?
Yes is the short answer. Um, there's probably, that's a whole, you know, podcast on that issue, isn't there? A whole, YouTube
Yeah.
show on that very question. I think just taking some, like say, points of principle and looking at what history has taught us might be a good starting point. Um, Ollie came in that time, and it was 10, 12 games towards the end of that season. We got the manager bump, and he's done magnificently well. Um, but of course, I mean, to stay consistent with what I said at that point is, well, you should still look at who the best man is for the job, and don't be blinded by what's in front of you. What undoubtedly will be bias and emotion coming into play if United are on a winning run. I guess the only difference that Carrick supplies, in my view, is that he's providing nuance now, game by game, and squad understand from very little time with the players, and you're seeing some clear improvements in every area, and certainly in the shape out of possession, in possession, out of possession, even more so, by the way. And you're seeing a clear identity of what he's trying to achieve, and his substitutions of. It's easy to say when you win two games they've all been correct, but even if you draw those games, they've been really well thought of and pre-planned. And I never got that sense from the first 10 or 12 games in Ollie's reign. I never got that sense. I was never for Ollie staying. And I'm sorry that upsets lots of Ollie Solskjaer fans. I'm a massive fan of the Norwegian, generally speaking. So I guess that's the only difference that gives Carrick a modicum of chance. I still think if you ask me now to be a betting man on the issue, I would bet they'd go for someone with a bit more pedigree, a bit more experience and understanding of what it takes to manage a club like Manchester United long term. But certainly in the way he carries himself, like his character, the way he's been astutely bringing in the likes of Steve Holland, and the way he wraps his arms around his play, figuratively and literally, and getting what he has done out of them in these two games, it gives him a small chance. But let's see what happens. We've still got the Fulhams of the world, who funnily enough, we've used as the barometer over the years, haven't we? Like, what can we? Yeah, we can do it in the big games, but what can we do against the Fulhams of the world? The Bournemouths, the West Hams of the world. So that will probably be the barometer to look at as well. But make no mistake about it, he's been absolutely sensational in the last two games, and I don't know what Jim Ratcliffe and the board think of that, and I don't care at this moment in time, to be honest with you.
It's a perfect segue. Fulham, as you rightly say, has always been kind of the barometer, and naysayers now. People last week were saying, "Oh, first game bump, okay, fine. Can he go and do it at Arsenal? Yeah." So now those same naysayers will be saying, "Well, okay, we can do it in the big games. We could anyway. That's not a new thing. Can you do it against not a low block because Fulham have got a lot more nuance than that. They do have individuals that can provide moments of brilliance. Harry Wilson's one of the form players in the league right now. He's got a ridiculous left foot. Iwobi is always a joy to watch. Um, but we will know a lot more post Fulham, won't we?
Yeah, exactly that. We've got to go out there in the right manner, and this is where Carrick shouldn't take his foot off the pedal. He should be, you know, the danger is he overthinks it. So I think again, minimal changes is the order of the day. You might see Acuna looking in, you have getting a look in. And like he said prior to today's game, it is about taking the opposition in silo and understanding that each game, each half, as he rightly pointed out, will have a different challenge and create different tactical dilemmas for him. And this will test his coaching to the max, right? And this is what he said he's been doing since the Middlesbrough job. He's been, the UEFA as a course has gone, obviously doing the rounds, and his research and his understanding of the game has improved, as he said. This will be the test, and not to overthink it. And then the psychological aspect: can we keep morale high? Can we keep the group together? Can the subs that have not been getting on, the subs that are getting 5 minutes, Sesko, and I noticed he went straight over to him after at the final whistle, and that was really, really, a point really for me, and uh, a real kind of gold star there for Michael, because he knows Sesko will be unhappy having scored in consecutive games prior to his arrival. um, three goals as it was, and he's gone straight over. So this will be the chance. This will be the question, and it won't. Even if we beat Fulham, it's not a case of right. Well, Carrick's got the job. I think we need it. Methodical process. Who's the right man at the right time? Me and you have talked about the coaches available in the summer, from Tuchel to Ancelotti, and De Zerbi still gets a mention, but I'm personally a little bit unsure of him, especially on a long-term basis. So yeah, he's certainly impressed, hasn't he, in the first two games? And let's just enjoy that, and let's not worry too much about the immediate and long medium-term future. It's been a joy to behold. I've never done so much dancing around a living room in the last 3 or 4 years, Steve.
Let's end it on that, 'cause that's exactly the right point. There's more to come. There's more questions to answer. There's more processes to go through. But right here, right now, 2 weekends in a row, we're sat here with great big grins on our faces, and that's what it's all about, isn't it? So let's just enjoy it, and we'll touch base again very soon. Cheers, mate.
Cheers, Steve.